What is up, Packers fans? Welcome into an all-new episode of the Pack a Day podcast. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. You can find the podcast at Pack a Day Podcast. We made it. It is training camp week officially. We are just a couple short days away until I will be live tweeting at Packers training camp, and we will have actual Packers football to discuss. I cannot wait. I know you guys can't wait either. The offseason of no football and actually prognosticating on what is going to happen, what could happen, what might not happen, all that stuff is behind us. And now we again actually get to talk X's and O's and actual things that are happening on the field. We will be there soon enough. Today, we're going to kind of get you prepped for what you need to know ahead of Packers training camp, more specifically, some of the roster moves that took place over the weekend. For those who don't know, I did pre-record those few episodes basically Thursday through Sunday. Took one last vacation before the wildness that is the NFL season that basically kicks off on Wednesday and will basically go until the end of next mini camp. It just is nonstop, right? So until about the middle of next June, it's going to be pretty crazy. So just trying to get that last rest and relaxation in before we hit the wildness here on Wednesday. But I'm going to be going over some of the roster moves, what they mean for Green Bay, what you need to know as we continue to ramp up for training camp this upcoming Wednesday. Shout out to our brand new Pack a Day podcast YouTube members, Chambers691, Chris Ferguson, Jordan Ruda, Harold Baker, Kyle McHugh, Anthony Dempsey, and Allison Tuckwab. Appreciate you guys signing up. Now's a great time to do a couple different things. One, check out those Pack a Day podcast YouTube memberships. Also, make sure you are subscribed. Make sure to hit that follow button. And if you're on YouTube, get the alert. So every time a new episode comes out, you get it. There's going to be a ton of stuff coming out. Ross is going to be putting out some additional content, but also I'm going to be going live, I believe, a lot as soon as training camp practices are done. Sometimes those are going to hit out of nowhere, so you're going to want to make sure you're notified of those. And then also just a lot of training camp content in and of itself, right? Family night, pre-games and post-games, potentially for some preseason games. It's just now it's full steam ahead, right? So you're going to want to know all about that. If you're on the audio channels, make sure to get those automatic downloads in so they're showing up in your feed every single day. That will help you make sure that you don't miss anything, and it helps us as a channel a ton as well. As I mentioned, this is the final calm before the storm. Should be talking to Justice tonight for tomorrow's episode. Wednesday, we're going to do a full training camp preview, and then we'll have actual training camp recaps for you after that. But before we get there, we do have some roster moves to discuss and kind of go over in detail what those moves actually mean. We're going to start with a couple releases. Packers released two players this past weekend, including Nesta Jade Silvera and Cameron Young, two defensive tackles. It's interesting. I was just asked about Cameron Young, I think on a live show right before I kind of went on that final vacation, and people are asking, I think there was actually a comment when I did the full list of players from 1 to 100, 90 to 1, I should say, of like why Cameron Young wasn't rated higher. And I even, again, got some questions recently of like, why I haven't talked about Cameron Young more. Could he make an impact? Well, now we know he will not, right? He was released. The interesting thing, there's a couple interesting things about these. Number one is that they're both defensive tackles. Next is that these are two defensive tackles that actually have true NFL experience. Not a ton. Nesta Jade Silvera has played 95 snaps in the NFL. Cameron Young has 203 snaps in the NFL, but actual real life, legitimate NFL experience. Like these are actual like sort of free agents, not just your normal undrafted free agent or guy that's never played in the league. They've actually played NFL snaps. And it just goes back to something I say all the time of you really have so much value in the NFL until you show on film that you don't. And what I kind of mean by this is guys like James Esther, Nasir Stackhouse, and Keith Randolph, three players who have never played a down in the NFL, are usually going to be more intriguing to NFL evaluators than players like Cameron Young and Nesta Jade Silvera, who have gone out and played in the NFL and don't exactly have the sexiest tape in the world. So sometimes you have more value as a player who hasn't played because there's still a question mark. There's still a prospect. There's still a what if they're actually good, rather than two players who have actually played and you go and watch the tape and it's not what you want it to be, right? So it's just kind of interesting. Now, if you're a first, second round pick, top prospect, anything like that, you're going to get more opportunities. When you're Nesta Jade Silvera or Cameron Young, you have to go out of your way even more to really prove that you deserve those second opportunities in the NFL. Not sure what led to the releases of Nesta Jade Silvera or Cameron Young. We'll probably never know, but they did release both defensive tackles. They did stick with guys like James Esther, Nasir Stackhouse, and Keith Randolph. And now you are left with 8 defensive tackles on the roster for at least 5 spots, possibly 6 spots. And this is a huge win right now for James Esther, Nasir Stackhouse, and Keith Randolph. Now, I don't know how much we want to really, spin the story of how real an opportunity it was for Nesta Jade Silvera or Cameron Young to make the 53-man roster or anything like that. But certainly if you're a guy like Keith Randolph, Nasir Stackhouse, or James Esther, any more opportunity that you get, just more snaps, more reps, more opportunity to show yourself in preseason, the better off it's going to be for you. And it's certainly easier to compete with 8 defensive tackles than it is with 10 defensive tackles. Now, maybe they make a roster move. Maybe there's some more defensive tackles on their way. We don't know. But as of right now, this would be a pretty big win for James Esther, Nasir Stackhouse, and Keith Randolph, and maybe to a lesser extent, guys like Warren Brinson, Colby Wooden, and maybe even a Carl Brooks. It's interesting because this is a team that constantly talks about, well, we want depth and competition at all these spots. There's not a ton at defensive tackle right now. Clark Wyatt locks to make the team. Brooks and Wooden, really good bets. Warren Brinson, probably a really good bet as well. Those might just be your 5. Probably are just your 5. But if you get any sort of injury to any of those 5, or even just, again, want some competition to press Brinson, Wooden, or Brooks, you don't really have it. And that's, again, where you get James Esther. And I know there's a lot of people extremely high in Nasir Stackhouse. I would always just caution you of he's still an undrafted free agent. I get he's a big guy. I get that there's the hope that he could, turn into this run defender. He's even wearing the number 93. If you just do a quick glance, it almost looks like he's TJ Slayton. I get all those things, but I would put him more in the Jonathan Ford category. You remember the 7th round pick who big, intimidating presence, never played it down for Green Bay. I did get some time with the Bears this past season, didn't do a whole heck of a lot with it, but I put him kind of more in the Jonathan Ford than the TJ Slayton sort of category. But still, hopefully I'm just wrong and he's great, but that's a huge opportunity for him. And then again, at Keith Randolph, you're a little bit thin at that spot if you get any injuries, and there's not, again, a ton of competition to press guys like Brooks, Wooden, or Warren Brinson. Hopefully you're just healthy, and hopefully those top 5 guys are really, really good. But again, some huge opportunities. I thought maybe a player that Green Bay might be interested in at the defensive tackle spot when I saw those releases was going to be Taven Bryan. But Taven Bryan signed with the Bengals over the weekend, so he's off the market now. And again, they do have those 3 roster spots open, so we could see this position maybe get some reinforcements. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the show. Of course, those were not the only roster moves that Green Bay made. They also placed some players on the PUP list and the non-football injury list. Let's go over PUP first. They placed 5 players on the PUP list: Christian Watson, Quay Walker, Colin Oliver, Micah Robinson, and John Williams. All of these players did not practice at minicamp, and all of them now are on the physically unable to perform list. So let's kind of go through these one by one. The easiest one to talk about here is Christian Watson, right? This was as expected. The wide receiver room doesn't really shift in any way, shape, or form because of this. We all expected it. It's mostly much ado about nothing, right? There's nothing to see here, nothing to talk about, so we can kind of move on from it. Quay Walker is the interesting one of all of the injury lists. The Elton Jenkins one we'll talk about as well, but we sort of saw that one coming. But Quay Walker's the interesting one. He did not practice in OTAs or minicamp. When asked about it, Packers PR said it's an injury situation and he would be ready to go for training camp. He is now not ready to go for training camp, at least as of now. We should mention that with these, they can be taken off at any moment. So if all of a sudden Wednesday comes along and Quay Walker's good to go, or any of these players that are on the non-football injury list or the PUP list are good to go, they can be taken off the day of that first practice. So it's not 100% that he may not be ready to go, but this is probably an indicator that there's going to be a little bit of time here for Quay Walker. Maybe it's a little, maybe it's a lot. We just don't know at this point. But the last update that we heard was that he was going to be good to go for training camp. Now, I think Matt technically was asked in a press at the very last press conference of minicamp if there was any concern, and I think he was asked about Rashid, Quay, and a couple other players, and he kind of left it of like, we'll see sort of thing. But again, when I asked Packers PR about it, they specifically said, they thought he would be back for the start of camp. That is now not the case. The more interesting aspect of Quay is there any aspect of this that is contract related? We know that with Elton, who is now on the non-football injury list, that this is going to not be a holdout. He will be there at camp, but he is holding in because he wants some sort of contract renegotiation, restructure to get him a little bit more guaranteed money is the likely situation here. With Quay, it's still worth noting that Green Bay did not pick up his fifth-year option, making him an unrestricted free agent in 2026, which could therefore make it so that Quay is maybe also holding in for a long-term contract extension. I want to be clear. I have no intel on this. I have no reporting or inside information. There is not rumors of this out there. I have not seen anybody report anything like this. And again, when Packers PR was asked about it, they said it was an injury situation. At this point in time, I believe that it is an injury situation. But it should be noted that it wouldn't be the most shocking thing in the world if this was a contract situation and that Quay wanted some level of long-term stability and was hoping for some sort of extension here. I don't know that he's going to get it, but it's interesting that when, Goody was asked about Quay, he talked glowingly and said they want him back and are going to work on, an extension or potentially picking up the fifth-year option. Then they declined it, and there's been really no progress on this that we've at least been aware of ever since. So is it contract related? We don't know. What the injury is, we don't know. Is it long-term or is it short-term? We don't know. And again, previously we thought he was going to be ready to go for camp, and now it seems he will not be. So this is a very interesting one. Looking at the linebacker position, it also leaves this position extremely thin. You have Edgerrin Cooper, Isaiah McDuffie, Tyron Hopper, Isaiah Simmons, Christian Welch, and Jamon Johnson. That's 6 guys. That is not a ton just to kind of get you through practices and also to, kind of get you through preseason and things like that. And in a normal situation, you might say, well, thankfully they have a Colin Oliver who can kick back from defensive end to linebacker, maybe give them a little bit more depth there. Well, Colin Oliver is also on the PUP list. He is not ready to practice either. So this is another one of those positions where you could potentially look for some reinforcements, just get some more bodies in there, if nothing else, because right now it is incredibly thin. Now, not a position of, weakness from a point of like, oh, they don't have enough guys. Like the guys that they have, Cooper, McDuffie, Hopper, Simmons, even Welch, and even Jamon Johnson, who I'm interested in, are worthwhile linebackers, right? This isn't just guys at the back of a roster who you don't really think have any chance. Like all 6 of those guys are intriguing to some extent. I still would expect some sort of possible addition to the team, but this will give players, I think, like Isaiah Simmons, Tyron Hopper, and Isaiah McDuffie more time to work with the ones. And specifically for Simmons and Hopper, I think that's going to be very valuable for those 2 players. Again, could be a couple practices, could be none, could be more than that. We don't know, but I do think that's going to give them more of a shot. And for Christian Welch and Jamon Johnson, should get them some additional playing time and practice time, more reps as well, which could go and help them could go a long way in helping them potentially make the roster as well. So that's another really interesting one to keep an eye on. And with Quay, again, that's a key piece to this defense. We all may differ on our sort of analysis of Quay and what type of player he is. He's still somebody that you certainly want healthy and that I think can help this team this year. And his sort of current contract situation, as well as injury situation, is remaining very interesting. And maybe we'll get a little bit more clarity on that when camp opens. Then you've got the 3 rookies, Colin Oliver, Micah Robinson, and John Williams. The thing that I'll say about this is and I've talked about it on numerous occasions, I hate rookies missing time early. and any rookies specifically, but I mean, back of the draft rookies, it's even harsher on because these guys are legitimately fighting for spots. Now, Colin Oliver as a fifth rounder, probably going to make it almost no matter what. But this is an interesting player that is in for a potentially unique role. And the sooner you can get him out there, the better. For Micah Robinson, the corner position is pretty shallow. And guys like Micah Robinson are fighting with Kalen King and Kamal Haddon for the opportunity, a real legit opportunity to make the 53. You would really like him out there sooner rather than later. And for John Williams, we have yet to see it. We saw him at rookie minicamp, which was basically an orientation, not really a practice. Didn't see him at OTAs, didn't see him at minicamp, and now he starts off on the PUP list. So that is one where you really need, like, he's already missed so much time. Micah Robinson missed minicamp. Oliver missed OTAs and minicamp. So you have these rookies where it's already so difficult to make that transition from college to the NFL. They're already late day three guys, fifth and seventh rounders that are trying to make it in the NFL. And now you miss time in OTAs and minicamps. Now you're missing time to start training camp. I cannot tell you how much I hate that. Hopefully it's short term. We don't know the prognosis for any of these three players and when they potentially may come back. I think corner is probably the one that's affected the most here. I think you have plenty of depth at defensive end, plenty of depth along the offensive line when it comes to Colin Oliver and John Williams, respectively. But Micah Robinson's the one, again, where you really could probably use some. You have 8 left, maybe 9 if you're including Bo Melton here. I think it really helps Tyron Herring, Gregory Jr., Kalen King, Kamal Haddon, those players to potentially get more reps and more playing time, and even potentially Bo Melton as well. So those are the players it probably helps. But for Micah Robinson, you clearly want him out there sooner rather than later. Same thing with John Williams and Colin Oliver. But yeah, again, hate when rookies miss any time at the start of training camp. You want them getting off to that strong start. And I'll just add on top of this with the PUP list. These are now the only players that could start the season on the physically unable to perform list. The PUP list is not a list that you can add a player to at any given time. They have to start training camp on the physically unable to perform list, make it all the way through training camp and preseason on the physically unable to perform list, not being activated at any point in time. And then at cut down time, you have the ability to place them on the actual PUP list, which knocks them out for the first 4 games of the regular season. So you cannot add anyone more to this list. You cannot, if you take them off, you cannot put them back on. It is just Watson, Walker, Oliver, Robinson, and Williams that are on that list now that can only be on that list to start the season. Hopefully Watson's the only one, if any of them, right? And we don't have to talk about Quay, Colin Oliver, Micah Robinson, or John Williams actually starting the season on the PUP list. But just note, those are the only 5 that can ever be on that list for the remainder of the season. All right. Then we have 3 players on the non-football injury list. This just means that they were injured away from the Packers. It was not a Packers injury while they were with the team that took place, right? But works similarly to other injured lists. Right now, they count on the active roster still. You can activate them whenever, but they are currently not practicing. The 3 are Amar Johnson, Alex Hale, and Elton Jenkins. Amar Johnson, I will just say again, I hate when rookies, again, undrafted free agent, you are fighting tooth and nail to try to just stay remotely relevant, right? And to have any chance of maybe even making a practice squad or trying to make a run at a 53-man roster. And starting behind the 8 ball by being on the non-football injury list is just a brutal blow for Amar Johnson. On the flip side, it helps Jalen White a ton, and any reps that he can get from Amar Johnson while he is out, it certainly helps the other undrafted free agent running back, while it definitely hurts Amar Johnson. You should be fine with 5 running backs for now, and hopefully Amar Johnson's nothing long-term here, but no need to probably make a move at the moment. But if you do get into the first preseason game and Amar's still not good to go, you may look at potentially adding a running back there before the start of preseason. Alex Hale doesn't mean much. I kind of wonder if they just maybe go in a different direction here and add a different player to the roster. It may be a different international pathway player, but if he's good to go, maybe in a couple of days, maybe it's much ado about nothing. But in the meantime, it just means Brandon McManus will get all of the work at kicker, which you need to be a little bit cognizant of. Player over 30 doing all the kicking. You might just need to ramp him down on certain days and maybe not do much. But Hopefully Alex Hale is just back a little bit sooner, and he can go back to staying on that international pathway program, being on the practice squad, and then giving them some depth at the kicker position in case there were an emergency on game day weekend and you need to call him up at the last second. And then last but not least is, of course, the Elton Jenkins situation. I don't know if there's actually an injury here or if Green Bay is just like, Elton saying, yeah, my back, or yeah, my ankle, yeah, my whatever. And Green Bay is just, going along for the ride. All right, we'll put you on the non-football injury list, and, we can, work the contract in the meantime. And then as soon as that contract's figured out, oh, hey, Elton's healthy again, that could be the case. It's tough to tell if there actually is a legitimate injury. Hopefully there's not. Hopefully we don't, as fans, have to fight through not only a contract situation with Elton, but a injury situation with Elton. My guess is this is 99% contract situation. But again, we don't know for sure at this point. The sooner Elton can get back in practicing, clearly the better, because he's making that transition to center. You want him working with Jordan on the cadence, on the checks, on the audibles, on all that stuff. And just, again, sort of, relearning that center position, getting reacclimated with it. You don't want this lingering long. You want him back out there. He doesn't really need to, play much in preseason or anything like that, but you'd like them to really work on that rhythm, consistency, and timing to get ready for Detroit in week 1 sooner rather than later. So that's the sort of context of that. And it seems definitely more contract related and just something that you want in the rear view mirror and can kind of focus on him just getting back to playing football, playing center, and working on everything with Jordan moving forward. So those are your injured players: Christian Watson, Quay Walker, Colin Oliver, Micah Robinson, John Williams, Amar Johnson, Alex Hale, and Elton Jenkins. In totality, 8 players on the injured list to start the season isn't terrible. Christian Watson already was expected, so only 7 above and beyond that. And then it kind of comes down to, for the most part, of like impact players, Quay Walker and Elton Jenkins. And one of those probably is just contract related. It's not the worst injury list in the world to kind of figure out. So hopefully that continues moving forward, and hopefully they can get some of those back sooner rather than later. But for now, those are the injured players that we need to kind of keep an eye on. All right. What also kind of went unnoticed here, and I don't think that it should, is it's not just who was on the injured list, but who wasn't on the injured list also matters. There's a whole list of players that, if you remember, were not practicing at the end of minicamp that were not on that list, or had some sort of ailment during minicamp that were not on that list. Jaden Reed, number 1 on that list, was going through some shoulder issues, and he did not practice at the end of minicamp. I know that when he did his Jaden Reed football camp, he was going back after that to go do some rehab work in Green Bay. Now, he did play in his charity basketball game, so that was a good sign. But clearly, just getting Jaden out there right away and not having any sort of injury issue would be a huge win. And that's exactly what this is. So love to see the fact that Jaden Reed was not on that injured list. Kamal Haddon was another player that did not finish mini camps and was out hurt. He is somebody that is clearly competing for a roster spot, and to me right now is probably the default at number 4 at corner. So that is a huge opportunity for him, and it's going to be massive that he can get out there right away and start practicing. Omar Brown, not clearly an impact player here, but for Omar Brown, first of all, he has 2 undrafted free agent rookies that are battling him for those, maybe even the practice squad spots, right? But if he wants to try to compete with Zane Anderson for that last safety spot, he needs to get out there. So the fact that he's out there right away is certainly advantageous for him. Kalen King, same thing with Kamal Haddon, competing for those corner spots. The number 4 spot is completely up for grabs. Remember, King injured his forearm. He was in a cast at the end of minicamp. The thought was that he was going to be good to go for training camp, but that seems to be now confirmed. He was not on the injured list as well. Zane Anderson didn't finish minicamp. He is good to go. And again, that competition with Omar Brown, just that back of the safety room, probably more of competing with Kitano Ladapo for one of those spots, maybe even a little higher up on the roster. So huge for Zane. Aaron Banks. Aaron Banks was one that just personally, I was like, oh my God, like he didn't finish, I think, the last couple of days of minicamp. You're like, you just gave a 4-year, $77 million deal. Imagine if he can't go out there or if he has some sort of long-term injury. So love the fact that he's not on that list. That should mean that he's ready to go to practice right away. Julian Hicks didn't finish mini camp. He will be out there competing at wide receiver. Not sure what opportunity that he has outside of trying to make a practice squad spot, but still huge for him. Rasheed Walker. Rasheed Walker didn't practice at the end of mini camp. And that is one where he has everything to fight for with Jordan Morgan for that starting left tackle spot. And again, we've talked about it. Dan Moore, over 20 mil per year. Rasheed Walker is going to have to fight to keep that starting spot to try to get that 20 mil per year on the open market next year. This is huge for Rasheed that he seems good to go for the start of training camp. Travis Glover did some work in minicamp, but was off to the side doing more work with a trainer and just kind of, I think, some stretching, maybe a couple individual drills here and there, but clearly was not a full go. He now seems to be good to go moving forward. And then, of course, Savion Williams, who was in the red practice jersey the entire time during OTAs and minicamp, he is a go as well and not on that injured list. He still could be in the non-contact red jersey. We'll have to kind of wait and see. And again, just because those players that I just mentioned weren't on the PUP or non-football injury list doesn't necessarily mean they're 100% good to go. They could still be individual only. They could be ramping up. They could be in a non-contact jersey as well. But it's still huge that the list of Jaden Reed, Kamal Haddon, Omar Brown, Kalen King, Zane Anderson, Aaron Banks, Julian Hicks, Rasheed Walker, Travis Glover, and Savion Williams are good to start, at least not on the PUP or the non-football injury list. Anthony Belton signed his contract. We saw a little bit of that domino effect, right? A couple of those second round picks signed, and then we got a bunch more after that. Thankfully, Anthony Belton's included in that as well. A couple things here. Again, you don't want these rookies not being able to practice and not getting off to that strong start. I think this is huge for Anthony Belton. Also, with John Williams out, with Elton Jenkins out, there was some like potential concern here, right? Because if Jenkins and Williams are out on the either non-football injury or the PUP list, we didn't know about Aaron Banks, Rasheed Walker, Travis Glover. And then Anthony Belton could have been like a holdout as well because of not having a contract. Like there were 6 offensive linemen that could have really been up in the air if things didn't fall correctly. But thankfully, Belton's good to go. He's, to me, one of the top 7. You have your potential starting 5 and then see where Morgan kind of fits in. Belton probably after that. Now Jenkins, again, being the hold-in and being on the non-football injury list. You really want as many of those guys out there as possible. Hopefully Belton's able to go out there and compete right away, show what he's capable of, and see if he can get himself in that conversation for best 5 along the offensive line. As mentioned earlier, you do have 3 open roster spots. If we were sort of predicting which ones may make the most sense, running back has only 5 healthy players at the moment. We talked about Amar Johnson. You should be able to get away with 5 for the moment, but if Johnson's going to be out for any period of time, as you get to preseason, you could want an additional running back just to kind of get you through some things. That could be a position that they look at. Defensive end, you only have 7 healthy players with Colin Oliver not out there. You start getting into preseason, you're probably not playing Rashawn Gary. That leaves you down to 6. Is that enough? That could be another position. We talked about defensive tackle, only 8 healthy players there. You could potentially look to pick up a player or 2 at that position. Linebacker, with Quay Walker out right now, only 6. I would expect a linebacker to get picked up. That would be the one that I would feel most confident that if they pick up 3 players before the start of camp, which I expect them to do, linebacker should very much be one of them. And then you could look at corner as well. You have 8 corners right now, 9 if you include Bo Melton. You're probably going to get, back Micah Robinson at some point. At least that's the hope. So you don't probably need to pick up one right now. But if you were a little bit concerned about Robinson, you remember Haddon and King were fighting through some things. That could be one that you look at as well. But I would expect those 3 players to probably fall, at least 2 of the 3 to fall within running back, defensive end, defensive tackle, linebacker, and or cornerback. Some players that could make some sense. Chris Barnes would be a interesting reuniting. Chris Barnes has actually gone on to have a pretty solid career post Green Bay. He is currently still a free agent and would provide some depth and special teams to the linebacker group. Some defensive end, Janarius Robinson, spent some time with the Raiders. He's had some opportunities to kind of make a name for himself. I believe he was like a former fourth round pick, if I remember correctly. But he could be a player that Green Bay looks at defensive end. Some corners with some pedigrees. I know you're going to want to hear Asante Samuel. He's fighting a neck injury. I think he's going to go kind of make a tour once he's 100% good to go. My guess is some team probably values him more for Green Bay. He's also not a great fit within Green Bay's defense. Also, he's a terrible tackler. I just don't expect that to be the case. If you're looking for maybe a corner with some pedigree that is still out there that, maybe Green Bay takes a flyer on, a la somebody like a Rasul Douglas when they did. Jack Jones, Caleb Farley, CJ Henderson are three players that could be out there that they could potentially take a look at. Tyrion Davis-Price was a running back who was just recently released by the Titans. He could be a stopgap while they wait for maybe Amar Johnson to come back. But most likely you're looking at probably UDFA types or guys who've had maybe just a small cup of coffee in the league that Green Bay adds to the back of the roster and gives an opportunity to see what they can do, maybe trying to make a practice squad down the road. Last but not least, we are starting to see some traction when it comes to extensions. We recently saw TJ Watt, George Karlaftis. There's been a couple others as well. So maybe still some time to get that Zach Tom contract extension done and get that put to the side before training camp starts so that they can have that fully good to go so they know where everything stands with Zach Tom ahead of the 2026 season. And then Green Bay can kind of focus on other contract negotiations from there. But we'll see if that gets done or if we end up with a waiting period for Zach Tom and maybe even some sweaty moments as you get into 2026 free agency, although they could always just tag him and do some variety of different things. I don't think Zach Tom's going to go anywhere, but would still be nice to see that contract extension get done sooner rather than later. That is going to do it for me today. As mentioned, we are getting closer and closer and closer to Packers training camp. Justice Mosqueda, in all likelihood, I haven't talked to him yet, but in all likelihood for tomorrow's show, training camp preview on Wednesday. And then we're back with training camp recaps, live shows, everything like that. So make sure to, again, like, comment, subscribe, give those 5-star reviews, making sure you're downloading those episodes on the audio side and getting those notifications on the video side. Shout out to our All-Pro and Hall of Fame members, Most Hated Minnesotan, PJ Wynn, John Wild, Brandon Paletta, Boom Handle, Donald Lee, Lori Lord, Baby QB, David McCluskey, Donald Decker, Alex Wong, Peter Ritaka, Jay Zimmerman, B. Brown, Puerto Rican Packer, Dan Gessford, Dylan Pat Scott, SoCal Pack, Chris Rager, Izzy Roberts, Ian Ewing, Carlo Delgado, Willie Winklestinkle, Jen Wright, The Gable Storm, Matt Geiger, Pack Attack Cast, Chris Weish, and Griff Henblee. I'll see you guys tomorrow, but until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.